Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Chris Brackett. This is LandLife Podcast. We're coming to you a little bit different quality right now. Camera's not working, and I've been putting off giving you the Dave the Deer update and everything that's happened in the last, really since the full moon, the night of the full moon, the predictions of the full moon that I would knock down a big one on the full moon and that everybody should be out there. And man, has it proven true to this cold weather and the crops coming off and the rain that we've got and the full moon being one of the only predictors that I really put in my bag of tricks that I know, whether it's hot or warm or Pennsylvania or Texas or Canada. That those deer are like vampires. For some reason, they want to walk in the daylight on the days of the full moon, 24 hours before, 48 hours before. If you're wanting more information on that, on what my theories are and what I'm talking about, you can go to episode 1 through 5 on Chris Brackett's LandLife podcast. And because I'm not going to bore you with you today, I'm not going to bore you with it because we have Dave the Deer. The deer we've been talking about on all those other podcasts, he is down, and we actually just got done cutting him up. We've got his head in the freezer, taking that to the taxidermist, and we've got, man, I didn't even really tell him what kind of sausage to make, but my favorite deer bologna sausage, depending on where you're at across the country, salami is what we refer to it as here in the Midwest. And I like barbecue with some yellow cheddar, whatever cheese he puts in it. I think it's a smoky hot yellow kind of a pepper jack. Whatever he puts in is going to be awesome, but that's what we went for today. Okay. Now we're going to talk about it. A deer named Dave on the full moon. First subject. Here's a couple of the things I'm going to try to hit on. I don't know if we'll get to them all. We got to get to the stand. We're after Descendant. Descendant's a 6.5, 7.5-year-old deer. He's like 25, 27 inches wide, big, heavy, probably score 174 to 176. He's been cruising, doing his thing where we need him to. We're hunting him on the outside edge on a soybean field, right on a little clover, actually a white gold clover rush field. And he was there all last night. I missed him by an hour. Last night in the stand, I had a decoy out, and he skirted the edge of the soybean field instead of coming out into the field. I think he was messing with these little bucks that were down in this little ditch, and I had him on camera at like 4:15 with 2 hours plus of daylight, and he just didn't come out of the field. Otherwise, I would have hit him with an old little snort wheeze. And he would have just rolled into the decoy. We decoyed like 4 bucks last night. Even a couple of does came out, and they wouldn't leave old DSD Bucky alone. And we have the deer named Dave. We have what's happening right now in the deer woods, what's happening in Illinois, and how you can use that across the country, and what's happening. I'm going to try to touch on ducking an arrow. I'm an expert at missing deer. I'm an expert at shooting deer. You can't kill them that you don't shoot at. So you need to know what to look for, how to meh. You hear so many people scare a lot of deer watching TV going, bap, 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 bap. I'm going to teach you what not to do. Don't do that. You got to talk to them like this. Meow, meow. Right? So many people, you watch it, and they're like, bap, 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 bap. And they scare the deer. And if you give them a meow, if you just practice a meow, 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 almost like you're calling mom. If you did that, they don't know if it's a buck grunting, a doe bleating, a fawn bleating, but you can get as loud as you want. Now, how do you know this, Chris? Because I've been doing it my whole life. I really have been stopping deer to shoot them my whole existence. In a meow, meow, as loud as you can get, they will stop, and they are not scared by a bap, bap. It sounds pretty simple, right? Like no one probably ever thought about it. They're just like, well, when he comes in, I'm just going to go ahead and draw back, and I'm going to give him the old bap and stop him. And if you watch videos from about everybody on the planet, you will hear them bap, 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 and they keep going. So either decide you're going to shoot them walking and give them about 3 more extra inches, or aim in the middle of them, or Try the old meow. I mean, you'd be surprised how many things that you can get away with calling deer with your mouth just to make them curious. I'm not a big one for taking calls out there because I've learned in my life if I need to grunt at a buck and he's close enough to me to see him, I just breathe in a little air. Give a little belch. Right? What? I mean, that's what they're doing, pushing air through their diaphragm, through essentially their gruntal noises. It's not brain science. Just suck in a little air. That was straight Culver's right there. Right? Right? So what do you think of that? What do you think of that information? I got my friend with me, my one of my business partners. We own land together. We're brothers in Christ, and we just, we're hanging out today. This is our official fence line deer camp, and so we're hunting the deer I'm after. We're gonna bro out and this whole week, and we're gonna act like men, iron sharpening iron, and we're just pretty much going to try to remember what it's like to be like 12 years old again and play in the woods with your friends. That's really what this week's about. So how are you doing? What do you think about that information about the old meow instead of a bat, 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 bat?
Chris, this is an amazing opportunity to be with you today. Hello, everybody. My name is Luke Lugenbuehl. I own a solar company in Bloomington called Legacy Solar, and it's been an amazing opportunity to be with Chris today. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I finally just said, you know what, I'm going to do it. Had the opportunity.
He's giving up his hunt to go hang out.
And I get to hear Chris burp in his microphone, and it is bringing me so much joy right now.
It was a grunt, baby.
I have no doubt that it works. I hope tonight during our hunt, I hear this burp, and we're going to test this theory out right now, Chris. Hopefully tonight, I want to hear you burp.
Well, you got them, deer, and then like my second part is that for me right now, calling and grunting and whatever, that was more like a preempt to the cool show, right? But what I was saying is you can do a lot of these deer noises if you practice them at home. It's not like ducks where you're and you got different calls like that. You're not going to call a duck like that. But one thing you can do is you can use a Drake whistle. If you just practice this stuff, it's like being a big kid that we were talking about. You can do a little Drake whistle. You don't need this stuff. You give them an old meow, meow. I mean, that's a fawn. Meow, meow. Just these little noises. If you need to stop this deer, whatever. I mean, I'm talking about just having the confidence in yourself really is what I'm really talking about, guys. Don't just do something because you saw it on television. Find your own way. Make it make sense. If your kids are scared of your wife yelling at them to come in for dinner and stop playing baseball in the front yard, and she goes, "Kids," and she's yelling, then they're probably going to be a little gun shy. But if you were to make a noise that sounded like something fun, then they're probably going to be more inquisitive. So I think I'm asking you to think about what you're doing and be conscious in this hunt while you're sitting there being bored watching this on your phone and listen to this podcast while you're in a tree. But just start thinking, meow, meow, instead of brah, brah, brah. I think it's going to get you a lot further. Anyways, we're going to talk about that a little bit, maybe a little more. Maybe we already covered it. Really, Dave's fat content I want to talk about. And I want to talk about my buddy Dougie Fresh's deer. We talked a little bit about it. Dougie being on the podcast the other day is one of my friends. We set up after this deer, and I literally broke his spirit and tried to get him to change everything about everything he does deer hunting because he wanted to crack at these big deer. And I watched him waste his time hunting day in and day out, jumping all over. And by the end of the season, he was completely distraught, trying to work. And I wanted to spend one season where he picked out an animal or really just a farm and figured out how to kill the biggest deer on that farm. And we watched it happen, and he did it before November 1. He did it in October on about 10 hunts, and the day was right after I killed mine. On the 29th, he slipped in and he stuck them. And we had to call in Tracker John, another gentleman with a dog, and I tracked him. I tracked him through 3 farms, and I said, "Man, this deer's not dead yet." And I'll tell you the story about that. And the value of men with animals. This has been a big topic, y'all. This has been a big topic with men and what their value of a buck, a deer, their hunting value to themselves. 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 3.5-year-old. What is it that makes you go hunting? I know what it was when we were 16. I know what it was when we were 18. But what does it mean to Luke? What does it mean to me? What does it mean as we get older? What does it mean when you get, 50 giant whitetails on the wall? Like I have right now. That was my goal when I was a little child, and it's different to me now. Why did I shoot a 4.5-year-old buck the other day? Because he was fancy and he did exactly what I wanted, and it was very spur of the moment in a stand I had never been in, and it felt like I was 16 or 17 again. And yeah, he's going to score up in the 60s, but oh my gosh, was it the most incredible hunt. And I went to a stand I'd never been in, and I was in a spot I hadn't envisioned them, and I didn't know who the deer was when I shot him, and I just hunted. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about. So Ryan is Luke's brother, and we're all in a company together, and we buy and sell land and develop them. And it's probably been a really great experience having these men in my life. We're going to see his brother and Chad and the rest of the guys this weekend and hang out. But Luke, when you were thinking about taking the day off, hopefully your guys are doing a great job solaring it up today. When you're coming, and taking a day off like this, what's your biggest thing as we go in? There's a lot of men out there that are running companies like you. There's a lot of men out there that are, taking time off, and they're waiting for November, sweet November, when the big bucks are running and they're on their feet and they're doing what they've been doing, and they're doing what they're going to be continue to do. Like, I think the 8th through the 17th are going to be so great because of kind of what the moon is. I don't know what the red moon is, but when people would ask me when I come to the Midwest or when I would hunt a non-bait state like Illinois or Indiana or Iowa, and I would always tell them, if they were going to an outfitter, pick the week before gun season, the 7 days before gun season, starting the 7th or 8th and run all the way through the 15th, 16th, 17th, even 18th. To me, that's when the big mega giants are a little wore out. They're a lot less on their body weight, but they're a little nuts, and they're a little tired, and they kind of get in this repetitive pattern. And I seem to find out when I leave my unpressured stuff alone that they're really susceptible to taking an arrow in the chest. So how do you process that as a business owner, knowing that you got to take time off? I know it's a big deal. I know it's a big deal with Kirk. He feels that he needs to be back with his employees at his company. And he just loves them that much that he feels that he needs to be there. And they would probably work harder if he just went ahead and just got on with his hunting, and they're doing their thing. That's why you hire great people. Do you feel the same way about your people, and how do you process that?
I love the opportunity. I've been working hard for 7 years to get to this point where I can take off in November. I was actually a high school physics teacher before, and I only got 2 days off the entire year that of my choosing.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't take off in the fall while you're a teacher. And this is like an opportunity of a lifetime where I can actually step away from the business for 5 or 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is actually a dream of mine, Chris, I've been working towards, that I can step away, and I've got great leaders and I've got great people in my company that are basically running it for me. And that's amazing to me, that I really don't have to worry about anything. Now, this is the first time in 7 years that it's been here.
Well, and I think that's a testament to hard work, good leadership, good people. And now you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor, and then you go back to work and get ready for Christmas and the cold part of the year, whatever. But hey, everybody, that means that you just, you heard it here, where we all run our own businesses, and then all you guys that are making it happen out there, shout out to you. You guys are the ones that make it happen. And so then you make sure that you are taking off your weeks and the vacation weeks that you get, and work hard. I mean, I know as an employee working for other people in my life, I always knew that if I was really honest with them and I knew I needed days off, it doesn't matter when I would get it done, as long as I got the job done. And I think what I'm promoting here is, if you're working for somebody else, know that they're just like you. Go communicate with them. And you know what? If you can't take those specific days off or flow, then let's start working toward a goal. Like, as you heard, he was a teacher, I was a mailman, and we both went after our dreams, and we put ourselves in a position to where we own land. And then we also put this in perspective to where you can get to a place where you can take time off. All right, Dave the deer. Okay, we were talking about the full moon on October 28th for months and months ahead of time. I knew that October 28th was going to be a day that I knew I could get a really great encounter with a whitetail. I didn't know if I would shoot them. I didn't know if I would have any big deer on camera that I could pattern, but I knew if I had mature deer, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old deer, they would be on their feet that day. And my theory, my convictions of what I really am as a big whitetail hunter was looking at October 28th for 24 hours to 48 hours before the full moon. And I had, smart mouth people on the internet saying, well, you have it's not full moon until it's dark. No, actually, if you do your research, the moon's always out. It just is always rotating like the sun. And it's not rotating, or we're rotating. Anyways, it's always up. And the deer go more by the moon than they do the actual sun. And so when you get that full moon, I don't have a scientific reason. Maybe you do as a teacher. But for me, I don't really know why.
I can make something up, Chris, if you want me to.
No, I think there's enough garbage on the internet out there. So we'll add some crickets to that. I think there's enough garbage on the internet. I think at the end of the day is that that's the one thing that I can prove, that most of the big deer that I've ever killed have been flat out 24 hours, 48 hours before that full moon. And I say 48 hours because of the fact that the full moon sometimes comes in the middle of the day on like October 28th. And so those deer are ahead of us, of what I would call the same reason that guy was like, it's only a full moon when it's dark out, Chris. Okay. Just because of that, I say 48 hours, but really if you can find that peak of when that full moon's out, and sometimes it's 3 p.m, guys, those deer are going to move 24 hours before that. I don't know why. I think they're part vampire, but they will walk in the daylight. And when I say they'll walk in the daylight is, you will have a deer get on his feet from wherever he likes to be, and he will do his nighttime route or his 1 week route where he, does his thing. He gets a cup of coffee. He goes and visits his friends at the restaurant. He goes to, Bass Pro. He, goes and works on his car. Whatever little pattern the person would do, imagine them doing it like once a month. And that day you can guarantee that they're going to be a little froggy. And if you don't believe in it, look at the hospitals. Ask your local police officer, sheriff, cop. Full moon are crazy for human beings as well. And so that little extra, whatever that is, that thing is a trigger for me to go out and try to kill a big buck. And that's just what happened. So my friend Kirk was in town. He was on, let's say, Dave the deer. We talked about that. He was on the podcast. And we had a couple other big ones we were on. And I thought to myself, like, I've already hunted October. He just got here. I'm going to let him kind of take reign of the home farm and the other areas where we knew these deer were doing their thing. And so I went to a stand that I actually had never been to. It was down in an area that I can hunt. And it was kind of a weird wind. We had a north wind, and I didn't have very many sets, and I didn't go on the 27th because there was not a real good place for that wind. There definitely wasn't in the morning, and he was seeing really good activity, buck after buck, hitting these scrapes on the kill plot, famous kill plot. He had passed up a 5-year-old, a couple 4-year-olds, some really great deer, and I knew like he wanted one of these specific deer, which gets into one of our value of animal to men and our goals that we have. And so in that, I just went to a completely different spot. And when I tell you where I was down by a creek on the edge of some CRP grass between two pieces of CRP. And I never hunt the bottoms. And for some reason, I just really kind of wanted to get down in there. I knew that if I was going to get a shot at a big one, it was going to be a one-time thing. into a stand I'd never been in, not in my concentrated kind of traps that I call them, which is like the food plot and the scrapes and the rubs and the cedar branches that I put out and the food plots and all the traps that I've set all year. This was just old school ladder stand style, down in next to the creek, next to these big thickets. I didn't really know what was there, but I knew that I would be able to see a long ways, and so I went for it. I went down in there. It was really high up. I got there. I had a real good, consistent wind coming out of the north. I was on the bank of a creek, bunch of set aside brush, thicket to my left, big pipeline, big kind of grass field up to the top, big CRP field to my right. I walked with the wind at my back because it was very particular in how fast it was blowing, 10 to 15 miles an hour at my back. And blowing into this cut bank that actually rode up over top into this other field. And so when I go into a situation like this, I'm going into it where if I look at my map, I use Onyx, ONX Hunt, Onyx Hunt. I go onto that and I circle these two areas kind of, sometimes I actually circle them on the app. But I know if that wind is consistent enough at my back, I can walk down a cut line or something and get straight into a stand. And I know that I'm hunting a deer in this 10 acres that's not going to know I'm there, and the deer in the other 10 acres offside. If those deer are bedded in that area, I'm putting all my cards on that particular area of having that deer undisturbed. And if I move fast enough, like the wind, like a ninja, if I move fast enough with that wind at my back, and I can get down there and get in that stand and then flip around and face into the wind, I'm going to be able to execute a stealthy in and out. And then those deer on both sides of that are going to be able to cross kind of in front of that. So when that happens, that scenario, you're going to want to watch out for the scent you leave on your feet and your boots and stuff. And that's exactly what happened. Was I made it in clean. I had does come from, oh, this is the funny story. I had does come in when I was walking down the 2-track. I looked to my right and I have two full-grown adult does at 25 yards. One of them is full alert, frozen statue like it's somebody's yard, and the other one is half up, head down, hiding in the CRP. And I caught them out of the corner of my eye, and they were, because they didn't have my wind, but they just saw me. They were like, if he keeps walking, we're cool. And I just kept walking, even though I saw him. And they were 20 to 30 yards off that 2-track, but they were in the brush, so they thought they were cool. But they didn't smell me, they just saw me. So they'll let you walk by when that happens. And that's exactly what happened. Pretty soon, about an hour after I was sitting there, this is about 4 o'clock, these two does come off the hill. One doe came out of the CRP by herself, and they're all just feeding on grass. And I knew that they weren't up and moving and going back and forth and doing all this deer stuff. They weren't hungry. It wasn't cold enough yet. They weren't being chased. They were very, what I would call, stale. They were very much just chilling. At any moment, I felt that they could go to sleep, like my wife after we watch them watching a movie. You know what I'm talking about? And those does just kind of were just really relaxed, just hanging out, kind of waiting to see if any little buck was going to bum rush them and then chase them around. They were kind of like more annoyed, just kind of like, I'm just going to hang out here. The further I walk, the more attention I'm going to drag to one of these smaller, these little bucks, piranha style, chasing them around. So they're just really chilling. So I was taking all that in going, all right, well, if it's going to happen, one of these bucks is going to come cruising and see them up this big cut line. And just then I watched these does. And this is something, if you're looking and watching deer and you're studying them, these deer are looking into the brush next to me, and they're not looking at me, and they're looking past me down in the brush. And I kind of heard a noise, and I was like, oh, well, maybe a deer, maybe a coyote, maybe a squirrel, whatever. And I just kind of paid attention to them. And next thing I know, I hear tree thrash, and I look down at 30 yards on the creek bank. There's a deer with enormous G2s and G3s and great brows, absolutely ripping the crap out of about 5 sapling willow trees. And he's already at 30 yards. And and I just see that he's a really big 2 and 3, tying deer. I don't know who he is. I'm just kind of trying to collect myself. I'm trying to outsmart these does by not giving up my position. This buck is thrashing the willows, and I'm trying to decide if he's a shooter or not. And just then he pulls his head out of those willows with one big upsweep, and I see those long 2s and long 3s. I know he's got 4s on both sides. Now I know he's a 10-point. He's got great brows, and I don't even know how old he is, and I didn't care. I just went back to a 16-year-old myself where I'm sitting in a tree, in a thicket, on a creek bed, looking at some does, and this deer big enough for me is standing there, and he goes to get into this creek. And it's funny, he takes 2 steps down this big steep creek bank, and he gets his brow tines and a G2 stuck around one of the saplings, and it's kind of wedged. And I watch him moonwalk back up the trail. If he'd have taken that trail, he walked at 10 yards right in front of me down to the creek, I'd have shot him. But he gets this 2 and his brow tine kind of wedged in this willow, and he's going back and forth, and he moonwalks back up the trail. And now he goes to walk away, and he's walking away, and he's probably at about 35 yards when I decide, okay, when he can hear me because he's walking, and so just as he's kind of slowing down, I give him the old snort wheeze, and he kind of cocks his head. He acts like he's not paying attention, and I hit him again just with one. And he turns that head around, he looks my direction, and then he looks straight back ahead, and he starts licking his lip. His tongue's like 4 inches long. He's licking his lips. He's licking his tongue. He's taking his tongue, and he's getting his nose wet to make sure that nose is rocking, because he's trying to smell what's in the air. There's a imposter, there's a intruder, and he's licking for like 15. He's just licking this big black nose, and next thing you know, he starts pounding the ground and pawing the ground. There's no trees around, just in the grass, and he's acting like a bull in Spain. And just then he snaps his whole body around. Now, I know right now I got him. Like, I've got his attention. He's coming. And he starts pawing the ground. He kind of cocks his head to the side, waddles it back and forth. Picture a big bull elk. And his ears are laid back, and he bristles up, and he turns. And at this time, he turns 180 degrees, and he's walking straight at me, and then just kind of starts leaning to where he's going to try to get south on me because that wind's blowing out of the north. And now at this point, I'm looking at what windows I have. Remember, because I just went to the stand, I haven't trimmed or nothing. I got 2 windows. And just as he gets through the first one, and I'm using my Raven, by the way, and I'm using my Raven. And if you guys want to argue about about using crossbows, listen to episode 4 or 5, and we're going to move on. So I'm crossbowing it, and he's moving through, and now I've ranged him. And I don't know if I don't have this on my list, but one of the things that I really use, you guys, is a rangefinder up until the moment I shoot at the animal. The moment I shoot at the animal, I will range him 50 times and then pull my weapon up and shoot. I need to know within a half inch of what that animal is. I owe it to the animal. I owe it to the ethics of how I hunt. I'm going to have to know that yardage. And most people just kind of go, well, I shot it earlier in the day. I think he's 30. I'm ranging him, and I know that right now that he is 40 yards, and he is broadside. And just as I get ready to squeeze off the trigger, and I'm holding just low of his lungs, and just as I get ready to squeeze the trigger, the does blow up on the hill. They blow, and he kind of stutters a little bit, and I just didn't capitalize on stopping them because they blew. And when they blew, I had a brain fart, and I couldn't think. And then I watch him stop, and he faces dead away from me in my hole, right in the hole I was going to shoot him in. And I'm waiting to find out what he's going to do. I can't do anything at this point but just act completely chill, because you have to understand that during the rut and during this chase and seek phase, those does blow all the time at a buck chasing them. Like, they get pissed too, and they get annoyed with the little bucks, and and a lot of time they know that if they blow, that a lot of the other deer would get alert, and sometimes those other deer will run off and now they can go the other direction. And that happens a lot in the woods. So when that doe went, he hadn't seen them yet. So he turned to look what was making that noise. He wasn't scared. He looked to go, oh, there's does on the hill. And I'm like, yeah, you're dead. And he literally saw the does. They got his attention. He turned broadside the other way, right in the hole, and I let her fly. And I heard whop, like a phone book. I heard that. I was using a rage with a chisel tip. I don't use the no collars. I still shoot rage. I'm not paid by them, but I shot them for a long time. And you got to ride shotgun with the girl that brought you to the prom. And I just literally heard it, phone book pop, and it felt like an incredible shot. I knew it had hit him below the spine and behind the shoulder. I knew we were going to get him. I followed my rules, so I hear it pop into that sound, man. And I watched this deer take 3 bounds. Tail was down, paying attention. Tail was down, bounds, stops 30 yards further. So now he's 70 to 75 yards away from me. I shot him for 40 yards, and this deer is standing there, and he's got his ears tucked. These are the details I remember. Ears tucked, tail tucked, and he's standing there, and I'm going, please, Lord, make him fall over. Just please fall over. Just please fall over. Just please, please. And you say it about a million times. I got looking through my binoculars, and I'm watching. 10 minutes go by of me watching this deer, and I'm trying to hold on the crossbow, and I'm shaking out of my mind, and I'm shaking and shaking and shaking. And finally I'm like, okay, take 1 minute to yourself. I can't get a shot at him. He's through brush, and he's standing in the grass. So quietly I hang back up the crossbow. I grab a hold of the tree. I make sure my feet are firmly on the seat. I stand on the seat. I'm hugging the tree, and now I get him back in the binoculars. Now I can see him a little bit better. So if the stand's 20, and then I'm 6 foot tall, so now I'm standing up, and then I get up an extra 2 feet on the seat, and I'm standing holding on to this big cottonwood, and I can see him. And just as I'm watching him, I watch him for another 15 minutes, and I'm telling myself, listen, this is a real story of me telling and talking to myself, going, you can't take your eyes off him. You can't take your eyes off him. And this is a matter of discipline. I may not do crunches to get a six pack, but I can stand there and be in pain looking through my binoculars I owe it responsibility to this whitetail. And this deer is now all of a sudden he puts his front end down first, his back end down, and he lays right there in that grass. And this grass over his head, all I can see is his G2s and back. And he's just barely looking around, and I'm watching and watching and watching. My discipline of doing that for 35 minutes. And finally I said, listen, this isn't healthy. You're going to fall out of this stand. You got to sit down. So I sit down, I take some more time myself, and I hear a noise, and I look over there, and he's no longer there. So he's either put his head down and he's died, or this deer has got up. And so I waited another 15 minutes. Now it's 5 o'clock something. I've still got an hour of daylight left. And so I just get everything, I get down, and I slip completely out. Now, understand what I'm saying. I shot an arrow. I didn't get down to look for the arrow. I did not watch him fall over and die. I've watched him lay down. I've been gifted the fact that I could see him lay down, and I'm praying that he expires. But even in this instance that I watched him, I get down, I slip out of there. It starts pouring. When I tell you it's pouring rain, it is cats and dogs pouring down rain by the time I make it to the truck. I set my timer, and now I know that at 11 o'clock at night, that is 6 hours later, rain, sleet, or shine, I am going to get down, and I'm going to get my stuff together with my buddies. I came home and I ate dinner with my wife. Me and Kirk and one of my other buddies, Tim, we went out at 11 o'clock, rain gear, and went after them. And we went in, and I located my arrow. My Luminoc was lit, located my arrow, and I found one about the size of your hand, Luke, one really dark coagulated spot where it was just the size of my hand. And I really was very disappointed. He was not laying in the bed that I watched him. So that meant he got up. So we looked around for about an hour. We couldn't find anything in the dark. And at that point, we had done everything we're supposed to. We followed my rules, found the bolt, established that it hit him. Number two, found the bed. And we decided that looking at that night in that thick of stuff, in that grass, we were going to do more damage. So at that time, we then also, remember 6 hours later, we're keeping the coyotes off because we're being present. And I know that the deer he can't be far, right? I've got blood. So I went ahead and backed out. We slept until 9 o'clock that next morning, or I did. I don't know about the other guys. And we show back up the next morning. This is at 9:30, 10 o'clock. And we just roll up there. We go back to the same spot. We find the bed. We find the blood, and we start on the blood. And I said, well, I know this property very well. So 80 to 100 yards ahead is this creek that we just crossed, sweeps around this little peninsula, and it's essentially a peninsula. So I said, Kirk, can you go to the bed and then just try to find blood? And I'm going to walk this creek bank. Now, when you have a steep creek, guys, or creek, whatever you want to say, they're only going to have a few places that they cross it. So this is an old bloodhound, old gray-bearded deer trick that if you've got somebody on blood or a couple of your buddies on blood, and you're going to go try to cut the trail and establish if they haven't gone forward, you're trying to pick up blood, go look on every crossing that you think is in the direction he's going. So as I'm going down the crossing, and you'll see if you follow us on Instagram is Chris Brackett's LandLife. Follow us on Instagram. You'll see a video of me standing in the creek, and I can see underneath the brush, and there he is. He didn't go another 60 yards from where he was bedded. Expired actually after we had been there that night. He was still really fresh. His head wasn't rigor mortis, and so he had passed away. So he had actually needed probably about 10 hours, 12 hours from when I actually shot him. It must have hit a branch going through that little hole, but we did the right thing. We let him have time. We didn't go after the arrow that would have bumped him. And now this deer's on the ground. We get up to him, and he's Dave. Dave's big, man. He's a 4.5-year-old, and I don't know if I've ever been as excited about a deer. I call myself a big buck, an old, mature buck killer, but I'm telling you right now that I think that if every deer was a 160-inch 2-year-old, that the world would be a better place. I mean, really, right? What do you want to kill? Do you want to kill a giant, or do you want to kill an old deer? And I think at the end of the day, we all want to kill giants. And so I don't think that this even I don't think it mattered one bit. I was hunting kind of the old style. I think if a deer comes through one of my traps and one of my setups, and I know the deer, and I know that Dave's been here rubbing on the thing, and Wolverine's been here, and if I go over here, I can hunt Descendant. And if I go, and why do they have names? Well, it all started because there was 5 8-pointers on a farm, and you couldn't go, what'd you see? The big 8. What'd you see? The small 8. What'd you see? The kicker 8. And then that crap got boring. So you were like, I saw Bob, the 8-pointer, and then it just got fun. So anybody out listening out west or whatever that freaks out, a lot of people freak out about names for deer. And at the end of the day, when you have a lot of deer that you're hunting, and you want to establish which one it is. So why not make up funny names? I mean, it's hilarious. If you embrace it, it's very funny. It's very joyous.
Where did you end up hitting that deer, Chris?
So I actually hit that deer about midship, maybe just even back. If you imagine where his wiener and his twig and berries is, just go up from there about 6 inches. It was actually pretty far back. It was a little bit of a quarter. So, with a 2-inch big expandable broadhead, he went about midship and then came out in front of the back leg, about 4 inches up from the white. So it was really low and it was really far back. One, I listened to the sound. I watched the tail and the ears, and I could play it back in my head. As you know me a little bit, my memory is a little better than most, so I'm able to replay that back in my head. And then I watched what the deer did. I didn't overreact, and I watched what he did. I let him tell me what our next move was, and I let the broadhead do the work.
What did that congealed blood about?
It was very strange, man.
Yeah, what did that tell you about that kill, Chris, as you're processing that?
I think let me describe it a little better. If you took jam, any type of gelatin jam grape jelly. It was essentially, if you poured out about the same size of a Smucker's blueberry jam, a dark purpley liver
Okay.
kind of blood. I knew it wasn't like straight up meat, because the meat would have been a lot redder. We've all hit him in the shoulder blade. We've all shot him in a leg or whatever. And that's pretty veiny, fast moving blood. Not, I wouldn't say oxygen rich, but very fast, watery. Fast is a strange word to describe that, but it's kind of a fast blood, man. It's a muscly, like we've cut ourselves, a bloody nose, very bloody nose-esque, watery blood. And I knew it wasn't that, but I was very perplexed that, one, there wasn't more if it was a liver shot. And number two, I couldn't quite place why it was so coagulated. And that fake blood that they use for vampires and fake nasty old horror movies, very black blood. And that led me to believe that it for sure was in the gut somewhere. And it actually was more intestinal, like intestines, small, large. There's a lot of really naughty things that'll kill you and turn you septic in the bottom quarter of that deer, back kind of behind the liver. And people hate me because I don't shoot everything in the lungs, but I'm playing a blood sport. I'm there to kill it. I'd love to kill every one of them clean, but if I can chop their liver in half, buddy, they're not living very long at all. And at the end of the day, I want them dead. I don't want to wound them in the shoulder. So I'm going to always aim the back of the lungs and the liver. And it sucks that maybe he took a step, maybe he moved. But I really believe that I made a great shot. But if you trust don't go after the arrow, leave it time. If I was after just the rack, I would have gone the next morning. And after losing the last ones to the last early season deer to coyote last year, I really just thought 6 hours is a good time to make a presence known and see what intel I could get. And then after that, go on from there. So it worked out great. And so what I can tell you is, if you text me or Instagram or whatever pictures, I can show you pictures. There's just such a trust you have to have, and almost a surrender when you shoot an animal, that you just don't get down and look at that arrow. I can tell you this much, whether it's a kid's football game or whether it's something, if you're going out hunting, you can take that time to at least go out to dinner, go to a garage and have a beer, like whatever. You have to give that animal time, even before you go in there and check. If it's dead right now, it'll be dead in 6 hours. Yeah. You owe that to that animal. You're playing a blood sport, shooting, sticks with razor blades on the end of them. If not, we would all hunt with guns, and we would all shoot at deer at 10 yards with a giant caliber weapon. So we're actually playing a game. It is a sport. It is a game. It's a challenge as humans having dominion over the animal, right? We're playing a game. We're shooting sticks at things. I mean, so there is just this other part of the respect of you have, I don't know, man, it's primal. It's you can't go right after them because the odds are stacked in your favor. Like get out of there.
Can I chime in on that just for a second, Chris?
Absolutely.
As a busy dad of 4, right in the thick of life, owning a business, that is almost a spiritual practice.
Yeah.
To wait that 6 hours. That 6 hour wait. You've been challenging me since I heard you the last time on the podcast. I've actually talked about that with my sons, my 15 and 13-year-old sons. I've talked about it with my cousins. He's one of the most badass hunters I know. And he's like, yeah, Chris is 100% on that. I'm like, man, that's so hard when you are like, I got to get to work the next day. I don't want to get up at midnight or 1, but I think what you're saying is super important, and it is impacting me quite a bit, Chris. But it's easier said than done. But
how do you bring your family into it? I think is the question. How do you bring how do you use it? Like, oh, it's an inconvenience. Oh,
yeah, just my one thought is wait till the morning. Like you're saying, don't get up at midnight. Wait till the
Wait till the
morning
morning. If the coyotes
and
get
take
it,
the kids out.
you can always buy a side of beef. But at the end of the day, you want the venison. But if you wait till the morning, think about that kid down the road. That was
That's
me.
a great idea, Chris.
I would
That's
get emotional.
amazing. Yeah.
I get emotional thinking about it. That kid that's dad kind of stopped hunting and was divorced from his mom and I got tears in my eyes, man. That's rough to think about. Think about that kid down the road that's living with his mom. His dad's off making money, whatever. And go scoop him up, man. Buy him breakfast.
Yeah.
Make that a memory that will last his lifetime.
It reminds me of that video, and you have to tell the story. We can't go into it now. Remember that story when Chad, our buddy Chad from Herman Brother Realties, when he shot that big deer, and he had his whole family out there with him.
Yeah, the video.
It
was like you let the Hermans loose into the woods.
And it was so much fun because it became such a family ordeal. And it really impacted that you bring up this time. We'll have to tell that story some other time.
I think we get Chad here maybe with us and tell that story, but we have that video that we could put on the YouTube side of things too. But I mean, that was an entire clan of Hermans. I mean, brothers,
they probably
nephews.
Skipped school. I know them. They all skipped school.
We got a deer to go get, and they went the next morning, and there's this 183-inch giant on their own farm. Yeah. And that farm started with nothing, and we've used Game Changers, my company. That's a good time to talk about that. Game Changers, my company, which you got a consult set up. Herman Brothers Realty I'm an Illinois broker that sells land. You bought one farm.
Chris helped me buy my own property. We have
and then we're getting set
together,
up.
And Chris has helped me buy this property this summer, and then I'm begging Chris to come out.
We're going to get
I understand his value. I'm begging him to come out and help me set this thing up.
Yeah, it's awesome. I showed you the miscanthus and the switchgrass and the alfalfa and kind of how the flow happens. And you guys wanting some stuff on that? Like if you're looking at buying land anywhere in the country, Illinois, anywhere, that's what I do. I love land, man. That's why we do this. If you're buying in a farm in Ohio, let me tell you how that works. Ohio, Kentucky, Texas. You're buying a $10 million ranch in Texas, just send me a plan. Tell me where to be. We'll get a plane ticket and get down there. I can represent you as a consultant and a real estate agent licensed in Illinois. I can help you and consult if you're in Kentucky, Texas, Maine, wherever, by making sure you're making the right decision on what realtor that you and I as a team will be buying in that state that you're looking at. So don't think just Illinois. Think, call me first. We will either do a consult on I have 5 farms. Which one should I buy? Well, if you're hiring me as a consult, like I do consults on land, and there's no difference on the online stuff. Say, hey, here's a price. Here's $3,500. Help me figure out what the right thing is. Okay, great. I'm going to help you and teach you how to look at the right access on the farms or whatever, all over the country, because I've hunted everywhere and I've been to 49 states, and I can help you in all of those. And so if you looking for that team, you can call me, like Herman Brothers Realty, but you just hit me up on here. Look up Chris Brackett on Facebook and Instagram, and Chris Brackett LandLife on Facebook. So you can get a hold of me and I can help you buy in Iowa. I've got a great broker agent over there that I work with, and I get those referrals. That's how I make money. And a lot of times, if you're having me help you buy in Kentucky and we find the agent, that agent, when you're done with the transaction, that gentleman or lady selling that property, they're already paying an agent, a broker to find the right new owner. And so why not hire me to help you find the right thing and let them pay me to make sure that that's the perfect farm for you? And that's how we make money. And then I've got consults. Actually, I have an online consult tonight. I can't go to dinner with Luke at 7:30. I'm doing an online consult where I sit right here at this computer and we go back and forth, and I draw up on the map and I help them get close and set up this property for the best use and best use of his property, juice worth the squeeze. How does he start on a long 3-5 year journey of turning his place into a real whitetail wonderland. And really, I think what happens is the guys hire me for the online consult to see if I'm full of crap. And then once they do, like, I'll spend that $350 or $300 or whatever it is. And we sit down for an hour or so, we go over it, and the guy goes, okay, hey, I want to hire you to come put boots on the ground and do a consult. And so that's really, really good. A lot of times what will happen is I'll just go ahead and take that original online off of the boots on the ground price. And I had a guy get a hold of me about Minnesota. So maybe going there. I know I'm going to Wisconsin, Indiana, and Illinois is a lot of it. This is ground I'm already selling. If you're in Illinois, that it's discounted because I can be there and do my thing and home that night and work on your project on the computer the next day. But man, Dave was just that, and that's all the stuff we do. So anything that you're needing like that, you want to support Chris Brackett, LandLife podcast. Look, we need partners. My goal is to hire 1, 2, 3 guys, however long it takes, to continue to put out this content, continue to put out this education. We have such big plans for it. We've been talking about investing in it. Like it's bigger than what Fear No Evil and Arrow Affliction was as a television show. This is bigger than that. There's so much that needs to be, stories that need to be talked about. Jim Shockey paying me a whole lot of money to offer me to license my brand, and telling him no, and helping him get started on some of his shows, like Uncharted, and helping Brandlin, and man, teaching Eva Shockey how to shoot, because she never shot at a live animal. It's hard for dads to teach daughters. Zach Brown paying me a whole lot of money to license my brand. And then all the crazy stories that I got, man. Like, I want to take this to the craziest level, and just be pumping out content. So if you are a guru at any of this stuff in production or whatever, you don't even have to move to Illinois, boys and girls, but definitely get a hold of me, because I'd love to bring on some interns and make this thing sing. And we've got some great partners here. But I'm going to try to put this out as much as I can now that I just go off the computer. And as long as this quality is good with you, it's good with me. Man, we're going to have to do another one tomorrow. I've got Doug's deer to talk about, a 3 day.
That Doug story is it's
giant
shocking.
Deer.
That
it's
they
so cool.
found that. It's one of the coolest stories I've heard for a while, and they stuck with it. And congrats to Doug.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's so exciting. That guy's been working his butt off for that deer.
And the fat content of Dave proves to me right now that they're not rolling. So no matter,
tell me about that. Yeah, tell me
no matter what
about that fat content.
Well, no matter what you're seeing out there on social media and what you're experiencing on your trail cameras, I'm going to tell you one thing, that if you're going to take one tip to the bank today, don't trust your trail cameras. Don't trust your trail cameras. Be the trail camera right now. You have to be in the woods. I don't care if you can go on your lunch break for 2 hours in the middle of the day. Be out there, because
2-hour lunch break. What have you been working, Chris?
I don't know, man. Maybe they're working 10 hours straight and they got 2-hour lunch break. But if you can get out in the woods, you got to get out in the woods right now, because it is going. For me, it's October 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. If you're going to miss those days and you think that it's over, man, you got to be looking at the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th. Like, those are, to me, when it really happens. But right now, you're at the very beginning of it. And so I really feel that men think, I'm behind. Chris has killed a big deer, and Don Higgins has killed a big deer, but he hates crossbows and thinks that able people shouldn't use them. And I've got to do contradictory things to get attention. And all these people are out there talking about it all happening. Yeah, there's big deer happening, but why did they kill those deer? 5, 6, 7 people that I've been helping get close to big deer. It comes down to one thing: preparation, and being able to predict a year later where those big deer want to cruise and where they want to be. And what I'm saying a year later is, if you really want a golden ticket right now, Willy Wonka's golden ticket here at Chris Bracker's Game Changers, okay? Here's your golden ticket. Whatever trail cameras were telling you where those deer wanted to be last year, where they were cruising once, 2, twice, 3 times, that's where they're going to be right now. So go get in those spots and be there when they're there. It doesn't matter if it's noon, 3, 5, 8 in the morning, whatever it is. They're going back to the places that they were last year at the same time. And if they're not there, other bucks will take that same path, because that's the fastest way to cruise your farm for chicks. Okay. Right. The fastest way they can get around your farm. It would be like going, Chris, there's baby back ribs. There's baby back ribs and chopped pork from Sam Jones in Greenville, North Carolina, hidden in your 100-acre woods right now. There's 2 of them out there, 20 pounds each of those, a cash for you to go out there and just have your favorite barbecue in the world. Buddy, I'm going to tell you right now, if I had a south wind, I could make it through that farm in about 10 minutes and tell you where those baby back ribs and that barbecue was from 200 yards away, downwind of a thicket, how you're going to move through it. It just matters on what you're looking at. So if the only thing you care about is fighting and finding a new girlfriend and making little baby deer, and the only way you can the only way is to smell them, those same deer are going to do the same thing on the same path of creature of habit of the 4 and 5 and 6-year-old deer from the year before, and they're going to take the same paths. And so predicting when they do them, that's the key to killing big deer, besides leaving them the crap alone. But don't leave them alone anymore, because it's time to invade those spots. Invade right now. Go be there right now. And the rut prediction for me is those bucks still have fat on them. I been watching my cameras, and I think right now, as of today, on November 2nd, with warm south winds, enjoyable hunting, sitting longer and enjoying that day, I think you have to spend more time. I think you need to really expect a really nice deer to be walking from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock and from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock. And I think you have long sits. I think you don't put any pressure on yourself, and you practice your meow and know your ranges with your rangefinder, and put them in the liver and the back of the lungs. Stay away from the shoulder, and know that the middle of the deer doesn't duck, not like the front shoulder. And another one of those things I want to talk about, I have on my list, is a ducking deer. If their head is down, they'll duck a foot further and faster than if their head is up. So if you got to give them an old meow, make them pick their head up, they're going to duck less on you. Hopefully some of these tips lets you put a giant on the ground, man. Find us at Facebook at Chris Brackett's LandLife, and Instagram, Chris Brackett's LandLife, and then check us out on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Remember, we're looking for people to be a part of this podcast that really want to bump up the production and live their dream. Maybe it's a part-time job. Maybe it's just doing it for fun, men coming together and doing cool stuff. Maybe lease a farm and let you hunt it next year. I don't really know, but we're going forward with it. I'd love some support. And I love the letters and emails and the reaching out from men and people all over talking about, you're making me think, you're making me a better person, you're making me whatever. Well, this is my journey. This is my path. I'm glad Luke's here with me today, helping me take this journey. And you know how tough it was for me to put out this podcast using the webcam rather than my camera. It was very, 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 very tough for my right brain, creative artistry, goal-oriented self to do this. I couldn't just have a lesser quality product out there. So hopefully you guys don't care. Let me know your thoughts and let me know your questions. And Whitetail Land Life, this is the LandLife podcast. Thanks, Luke, for being here. Anything left to add? I'm just gonna have to do more tomorrow.
Yeah, I got to give it. I just texted my boys, letting them know I was on here, because this is like a dream of mine to be hanging out with Chris Brackett for a day. And so Elijah and Toby, this is a shout out to you guys, buddies. Hopefully we get Chris on.
Hey, hopefully we can go grab him for a recovery. It won't be long. I'll shoot another one, but it might be tonight. We're going out with a decoy in the same spot we were last night. South wind. Big boy's got to be on the field, and I'll give him an old. And don't let me forget to take the rattling antlers today. Rattling, fighting, decoys. This is the time. You ever dreamed about killing a big buck? And we're going to talk about what a big buck is to you. Don't always think about you have to shoot a 5, 6, 7-year-old deer. If you're going to shoot a buck, make sure you mount it or don't pull the trigger. That is my 2 cents for you. Make sure you're going to think about that $800 before just killing a buck. Shout out to everybody out there doing that, man, and hunting. And we'll talk more about land. And all right, we're going hunting, y'all. I will see you later. I'm Chris Brackett. Peace out.